Hi, and welcome to the Senior Network. I'm your host, Greg Fulton. Today we're joined by Nona Story of the Cypress of Hilton Head. Glad to have you, Nona.
Thank you so much.
Brian Tracy, attorney at law, Elder Law and Estate Planning Center. Correct?
Good morning, yes.
Glad to have you. Happy holidays, by the way, folks.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Everybody's running around all over the place now, excitement in the air, right?
It's all started.
Yeah.
And earlier we were speaking about pets, because I noticed a lot of folks carrying their pets and taking them into the stores and so forth, and you had an interesting comment about pets.
Right. In our work, we of course do a lot of planning, estate planning for individuals, and for the most part, folks are focused on what they'll do with their stuff, their estate, where they're going to distribute it, who's going to get what. And a lot of people forget about their pets in their planning. So they'll just assume that somebody's going to take care of them, and that's not always the case, so that can create a problem. So what you can do if you have a pet and you want to make sure that someone takes care of that pet after you pass, is that you can create a pet trust. Now, this is not an elaborate estate planning device that's going to set you back a couple of $1,000s. Right. It's a very simple, a couple of sentences, or it can get quite detailed. I've done pet trust that can get quite detailed, 2 or 3 pages. That took a lot of work, but for the most part, you have a pet, you have a dog, and you're worried about who's going to take care of that pet when you pass. A very simple provision in your will or your trust can say that upon my death, I appoint my niece, nephew, my son, my neighbor, to be in charge of my pet and have custody of the pet, and I leave $5,000, $2,000, a couple of $100s, whatever it is that you'd like to leave behind as a source to use to take care of that pet. It's very easy to do and very simple to do, and some people, they don't think about it, and that's understandable. Now, some people do think about it, right, but they think about it sometimes in the wrong terms. I'll give you an example. Sure. A client once came to me years ago and said, well, I want to take care of my pet, and I want to make sure that I don't just leave her after I pass with no one to take care of. So when I pass, I want her buried with me. And I said, wait, what, buried with you? Yeah, I want to make sure that when I'm buried, that my pet goes with me. I said, I don't think I can do that. Because I think it's I think it's illegal. You can't just. So I tell that story to illustrate that that people don't think about their pets the right way. You should. The idea that she was thinking about the pet, take care of it, and somehow it'll be left behind. That's a big step. That's nice. But that's not the way. A much easier way to say, I leave to my neighbor Joan $5,000 for the care and custody of my pet, and if somehow my pet passes before that money is used, then it just is left to my neighbor Joan for taking care of my pet.
That makes more sense.
Yeah, that makes more sense. But people do some strange
That
things.
is intriguing. I would have never. Do you have animals, pets?
Oh yeah.
Do you?
Oh yeah. We have a couple of golden doodles and a couple of cats and whatnot. We have not made any provisions for them yet. And then of course at the Cypress, I would say 1/3 of our members have pets of one kind or another. Oh yeah. They're important members of the family. That's understandable.
Sure. I just was down at the nursing home on the island and walked in, and I couldn't believe the number of the pets that were people kept in the facility. Yeah.
That's right. When my dad was at the Preston at the Cypress, he has a cat, and so we made sure he was in a private room so he could have his cat with him. And
if
that's
you've got
allowable.
2 pets, you probably want to try to keep them together, right? Because they've always been together.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Very interesting.
Just like children.
Yeah. And that leads to, a lot of folks live out of town, obviously, and the parents are here, children elsewhere.
Right.
So I'm assuming, does that bring up issues with out-of-state documents and changes and things like that?
Yes. What happens is many when you look around Beaufort County, you ask yourself, ask anybody you meet, are you from here? Right. And most of the time the answer is no, I've moved from someplace else.
Of course.
So when people move from another state, they bring their furniture and they bring their pets and they bring their documents with them. And very often clients will call on the phone to our office and say, I just want to know, I have a very simple question. Are my out-of-state documents that I brought from Pennsylvania or Wisconsin, or wherever they came from, are they good here in South Carolina? And it's a very difficult question to answer on the telephone because it's just a simple question. And it's really something that needs a little bit more examination. Mm-hmm. And what we have to explain to the clients, It depends. Good attorney answer, right? It depends. It depends on the documents themselves. We have to see the documents to be able to make that determination. Because a very simple thing to be concerned about is sometimes I say, well, I have all my documents. I'll bring them in. They drop them off. We take a look at them, and they're all copies. There's no originals. We say to the client, well, where are the originals? Gee, I don't know. I think we left them with Joe Smith, attorney back in Wisconsin, and I think they're in his office. But, you know, I think he died a couple of years ago, so I don't know where the originals are. But I do have copies. Well, unfortunately, copies present problems sometimes, and we do need originals. So you see that phone call when people say, are my out-of-state documents okay? You can see why we can't just answer it on the phone because we have to see.
Sure.
Sometimes they'll have a set of documents, some originals, some are copies. So we sort through it to see which are the ones that people can rely on. That's what they want to know. Can I rely on the documents that I brought with me from Massachusetts to South Carolina? Are there documents, their power of attorney, their living will, their trust or their will, or any documents that they have with them? They want to know if they're still reliable. So, for instance, in the power of attorney, you want to have a good power of attorney that you can rely on in case you need it. Because you're usually not running around using it all the time. And you don't know whether it's valid until the last minute when there's a crisis, and then you bring it to the bank, and the bank says, uh-oh, you're missing a signature here, and all of a sudden, a bigger crisis develops. The better thing to do is to bring it to a local attorney, whether it's me or any other estate planning attorney. Have them look at those documents to tell you whether or not there are documents that you can rely on. That's the big thing. Can you rely on these documents? So that happens quite often.
Great point that made me think. Can you go back to those documents are recorded somewhere in a courthouse, right?
Some are. Okay. Some are recorded. If you have a power of attorney, for instance, is very frequently recorded at a courthouse. However, South Carolina has different recording requirements. For instance, in Tennessee, I believe that's one of the states, don't mean to pick on it, but in Tennessee, you only need one witness for an execution of a power of attorney. And to record it, it presents no problem in Tennessee. But to record that same document in South Carolina, it does present a problem because every document that you want to have recorded needs 2 witness signatures. And they don't require that back in the state of Tennessee.
Very interesting. Hold the thought, though. We're going to need to take a break. Stay with us. We'll be right back here on the Senior Network.